Tonight, policy whiplash again. The Trump administration reverses its guidance on pausing immigration raids at farms, hotels, and restaurants. But just a few days ago, the president struck a completely different tone, essentially admitting that his deportation crackdown is hurting critical industries of the U.S. economy and its undocumented workers, and instead promising, quote, changes are coming. So it's hard to keep track because actually, Anna, you were here, yesterday or the day before, and we were talking about this. Mm-hmm. And then literally within the hour, Trump changed his mind, maybe because I guess the hypocrisy of it all was pointed out that you can't just immunize the industries that you care about because he's a hotelier and then penalize everybody else for the same thing.
I have a hard time thinking that hypocrisy would be a reason for Donald Trump to change his mind on anything. It's never stopped him before. I do think it's about the numbers. If they have a quota to reach of 3,000 people deported, detained a day, there's no way they can do it if they don't go to places where there are industries where there are a lot of undocumented immigrants. And that is the agriculture industry. That is the hospitality industry. Let's remember that when Donald Trump was running in 2016, there were undocumented immigrants that came forth that had been working in his own hotel and hospitality properties. And look, what's going to happen here is that we're going to find that milk gets a lot higher, because I don't know if any of you have ever been in a dairy farm. It is god-awful work. We're going to see that groceries and vegetables are higher. We're going to see an effect in our economy because whether people like it or not, whether Americans acknowledge it or not, undocumented immigrants are an integral part of our society and our economy. And we're going to have to get used to seeing the videos of U.S. citizens detained, of U.S. citizen children being ripped from the arms of their mothers and while they wail, of, dads and moms and business owners. Yeah, we're going to have to get used to that.
Well, what she was just saying, I mean, we've seen this play out. There was a raid in Omaha, Nebraska at a meatpacking plant. Today, Hartman, the company's president, said 30% of his workers came to work the next day after that raid. The rest had either been detained or were too scared to return. The plant, which processes beef, pork, chicken for restaurant chains and grocery stores, now operating at 20% of capacity. So there's the impact she was talking about.
Yeah, we're seeing conservatives in Pennsylvania, like Representative Glenn Thompson, coming out and saying, look, we got to protect our farms. And there's a reason for that, right? You're not running a farm without undocumented immigrants. It's just not able to happen. In states like Pennsylvania, it's going to tremendously damage our farm industry there and other states that rely upon farming. It's the single largest industry in a state like Pennsylvania that was so important to President Trump to win the election. I think he saw that. He saw the farms who've been tremendously supportive of him. Brooke Rollins did a good job advocating on behalf of the agriculture community. You have restaurants and taverns, which he has an affinity for, has an understanding of, so he lumps those together. But it was really about Brooke Rollins advocating on behalf of the agriculture industry. And there's a fight internally on that in the White House.
I guess I'm really trying to understand, why is it okay to say these undocumented immigrants have value and all the other ones who maybe they don't work on a farm, but maybe they take care of someone's child, don't have value, even though similarly they don't have criminal records. They've not.
People come out and
so
say,
I guess that's what I'm asking. Like, how do you square that?
All these people have value. I want to say that because it's really important. But I also find it incredibly problematic that we have whole industries in this country that literally rely not on immigrant labor, but on illegal immigrant labor. We have to ask ourselves why that is. And I have a problem with these workers being exploited. They have no recourse. They know they can't go to the authorities if they're being mistreated at work. They know that they can get paid even lower than minimum wage with absolutely no recourse. That's a huge problem. And I think the heart of this issue right now, even though, Donald Trump does cruel things, I'll acknowledge that. But the heart of this problem, what led to the situation, is the fact that Congress doesn't do anything. They don't legislate. For decades. They don't legislate. True. They don't pass the desperately needed immigration reforms that we need. I want people to be protected. But I also don't want entire industries to basically increase their profitability by exploiting labor in this country. And that's what's been going on for a long time.
And that largely happens because, like you said, Congress hasn't done anything. They haven't normalized immigration laws and modernized them. And as a result, you have this whole underclass of workers in this country who then get penalized while the employers don't.
Look, we do have an immigration problem, but I think immigration has to uniquely be tied to deficits in our country. So if there are industries and sectors that require additional workers where Americans, we don't have enough people, for example, then you have to pull people obviously from other places. And it's clear to me that the president is recognizing that as it pertains to agriculture and the service industry.
They undid, I mean, they're going back to the raids,
But
right?
why
They
is he
are
doing
doing
that?
the raids.
It's an action by Congress as to why he starts thinking about it this way. He has to almost legislate from the executive branch on this because no one's doing anything about it. He had to close the border.
But he could also lead. He could also lead and say, "Hey, Congress, that my party controls in the House and the Senate, put a bill together." Put something on the table.
He has a party
doesn't
full
want to
of
do that.
loyalists. Any one of those people would have.
I don't think he would get a bill passed.
I don't think it's even an effort to do that. But I just want to remind the viewers, his wife herself, a former nude model, got the Einstein visa to come over here, completely usurped the immigration system. What was her unique talent, I wonder, that she was able to get that? Furthermore, he's increasing these deportations because he's trying to be competitive with his predecessor, who I'm ashamed to say, Obama, who they called deporter-in-chief because he deported so many people. 430-something thousand, I believe, was the height of the year 2013. And can I just say really quickly, though, Stephen Miller, this entire immigration policy is the brainchild of Stephen Miller, a white nationalist, according to all the reporting, very documented reporting. He's a white nationalist, exactly. And that is the problem here. Ever since he was in high school, he is actually regurgitating people that were actually.
I just want to say one thing here, Anna.
I remember when George W. Bush worked with John McCain and Ted Kennedy to craft. He led in crafting an immigration bill that got very close to passing and didn't. And George W. Bush had nowhere near the loyalty from Republicans that Donald Trump has from his party. So if he wanted to actually come up with a solution, he would. But listen, let's also remember that at the same time that he's kicking out all of these brown people are getting detained just because they're brown. Even U.S. citizen brown people, just because they speak with an accent like I do. At the same time that he's opening the doors for Afrikaners fleeing from a non-existent genocide, white Afrikaners fleeing from it. So, at the same time that he is banning travel from black and brown countries.
It has also been, what she's saying.
This is about de-browning.
Listen, it is also true that this is a very potent political issue for Trump. Sure. And if he were to resolve it, as he has at the border, he's resolved the border, which has created other problems for himself because he can't use the border as much as he used to. If he were to resolve it, it would take the political issue off the table, and it doesn't seem like they are interested in doing that.
I don't agree with Anna that the president could convince Congress to pass a legislation where you would get enough Republicans in the House to actually agree with it. I do not agree with that at all. I don't agree.
That's quite a statement about Trump's political power, guys.
News host as Department of Defense.
If that is true, we got to go. If that is true, that is quite a statement about Trump's political power or lack thereof. Cher Michael, everyone else, thank you very much. Up next for us, it is just after sunrise in Israel and Iran, after Israel told people in parts of Tehran to flee ahead of strikes. Much more on our breaking news just ahead.